Hello everyone. Today we're going to look at an example of basically creating this disconnect switch from Siemens, or at least modifying it, where the shaft here is a variable length item, so we can make it appear in the real distance, basically. Okay. So the first thing we'll do is take the main molded case circuit breaker part here, and we'll download this from the data portal. Go ahead and just search, and I will import. Okay, so we're going to import this file. We can see all the data types that come with it, so we'll get the macro, the 3D macro, and all the other relevant information. Let's go ahead and bring that in. And then we'll also go ahead and bring in this disconnect switch kit. Let's go ahead and copy that to the clipboard. And we'll paste it here in the data portal. Okay. So let's go ahead and just test this out and see how it comes in normally. So we'll insert this onto our schematic. I'm using an IEC style project, but you can use whatever. It could be NFPA or IEC, it doesn't really matter. Let's go ahead and add in this accessory using the device selection. There's our accessory there. Okay, great. And there we have it. Now we'll switch over to the layout space navigator, and we'll create a new layout space. Call it A1. Let me go back into the properties of the layout space. Oops. It's always good practice to make sure we apply the appropriate structure identifier there. Okay. We'll insert an enclosure. That one's good. 0, 0, 0. Okay. We will activate the mounting panel front, and then turn on the 3D mounting layout navigator, and we'll place this breaker. Okay, that's good. Let's place, or at least attempt to place, this guy here. We can see, let me just line it up from the front. We can see there is a mounting point for this, so that as far as this mechanism here, it mounts perfectly fine. The issue here is that this is all in one piece. What we want is to split this up into different items where it's a little bit more intuitive when we're placing this on the door, basically. And also we want this to not be a straight 3D macro, but more of a variable length item, right? So we're going to modify this 3D macro here. So what I'll do is copy this project, only header data, and I'll just call this macro project. Okay. We're going to go into the properties of this new project, and we'll go to the settings, change this to a macro project. I also like to change the color of the project. This is an optional thing. This part is up to you. To me, it just makes it a little bit more visible that I'm looking at a macro project. Project group, I'll put this on project group 2 macro projects. And of course, your user settings need to reflect those colors. You can find those here under the project group definition section. Okay, so that being said, I'm going to make a new layout space here. We're going to make one just for the mechanism. And we'll insert this into the layout space. And the good thing is these are actually different logic items, so we can break this up a little bit. So we can frankly just delete that and delete that. And then this will be the new macro for the mechanism. We'll make another layout space for the shaft. You'll see why I'm doing this. We don't really need the macro, but we're going to use the dimensions as a reference. So for this, we'll delete that and that, leaving us with just the shaft. And then last but not least, we'll make the handle. Place this in here. We'll delete the mechanism and the shaft, and then there we have the handle. So why was this a problem initially? Well, if we take this and we try to place it on the door, I'm just going to copy this to show you. I'll copy it directly from here, and let's go to the door, outside, activate directly. If I paste this here, there's no placement area on this, this handle where it could snap to the door correctly. That's one problem. Secondarily, probably not as big of an issue, but the shaft itself, we're not going to get a real length at the moment. That's kind of icing on the cake, but while we're at it, we might as well just do it correctly, right? So basically the mechanism, there's not much to change here besides a mounting point in here. We'll come back to that, okay? So let's start with the basics. At the shaft, excuse me, the handle, we need to make sure that this is just one logic item, which it is. We can see that in the layout space navigator. And now we need to, of course, create the placement area. So I'll do that right against this area here, because this part's going to go against the back of the panel. So we'll insert placement area and define it right there. And then looking at this from the top view, it should look like that. And that's perfect. I'm going to go in here and just make sure there's no parts information. Just delete any unnecessary properties here. Okay. Now we're going to make a page for the shaft because we're going to use this as a reference for our outline. So we'll just call it, I'm going to modify the structures here a little bit. Make a new one called macro project. User def for user defined. And then here we'll enable user defined structures. So now I can do, let's say, Siemens dot 3VA dot. Okay. We'll call this a model view page type. We need to set the separator up correctly, so let's go back. Let's just go back a level, back into the structure settings and other. And for user defined, we'll set the separator up as a dot. Okay. Try that again. I'll call it page A for variant A. Model view. And give it a description. Let's make sure that we allow special characters. Let's add a dash to there. Okay, so there's that. Another thing is going into the settings where we can detach the substructures. If we go to projects, this macro project display, tree structure pages, detached representation of substructures. That'll allow this nesting when we have a separation like that. Okay, makes it easier to organize. So with that, we'll create a model view on this page. I want to go to the layout space with the shaft, look at the top view. Hidden lines should be fine. We'll manually define the scale is 1:1. And then there we can use this as our outline. So what I can do is we'll draw a polyline. We'll draw a polyline around this. I'm going to turn O-snap on and turn grid off. Doesn't have to be too precise. Just kind of skip some of those like that. This will be good enough, frankly. It's not something where we have to get overly precise. When we get to the end, we'll just hit space to complete it. Okay, so there is our polyline. So what we'll do now is we're going to make an extrusion. We're going to go to Master Data, Form Outline Extrusion. Okay, and we'll just I'll put this in the Siemens folder. Low voltage, 3VA. I'm going to type it in like this, SIE dot, then the part number underscore shaft. And we'll go to our model view, close some of this extra stuff out real quick. We'll go over here and we'll copy this polyline here, paste it in here, and then I want to kind of center up the middle with the 0, 0 point here. So we're going to turn design mode on and the grid snap on. Highlight that. Object snap needs to be on as well. Take that point and then place it right there. And now we need to flip it. And we want to make sure it's a perfectly closed polyline, so I'll go to Edit and then Check. This is what we want to see. The outline check has been successful. If it says something other than that, it could be that your polyline is not closed, right? So that should be good now. In fact, I'm going to open that back up and make one more change. I'm going to center it up, actually. So that was under Siemens, low voltage, 3VA, this one here. We'll just take this and grab it like right there, move it where it's, let's try that again. Now that's pretty much centered. Okay. So now what we can do is define some additional mounting points. We need to define a mounting point for that shaft on the mechanism. So what I'm going to do is go up here and insert. First we can view the mounting aids that exist. We see that there's one on the back here, so there's really none on the front. That's fine, so go to Insert, Mounting Point. I'm going to select the surface as the back of that area there, and then drop it right in the middle there. It should snap pretty good. I'm going to give it a name of just simply shaft, right? Now here's the crucial thing is if we were to drop a variable length item on this, it's going to try to draw it in this XY plane. It's not going to allow you to go in the Z plane normally unless you rotated it. So we're going to rotate around axis to line the Z plane up facing down pretty much, or up, it doesn't really matter. So I'm going to go click on this mounting point, edit, rotate around axis, and then we'll select the red x-axis, and it says enter rotation angle at the bottom there. We'll type in 90. Let's make sure that input box is on. Let's try that again. Rotate around axis, select the red x-axis. Okay, not sure. Let's try that one more time with input boxes on. There we go. Not sure what was happening there. Okay, so now that should allow us to grab this. When we place the shaft, it should allow us to go straight out like that, right? And we need a similar thing on the handle, so we'll go over to our handle here. We'll do the same thing. Insert, mounting point, place it on the center right there. Looks like I may have lost it, so I'm going to Control Z, undo that. Mounting point, I'll actually do it right here, and I'll just select the midpoint of that one while I'm holding Control, select both middle points, and it'll center it up for me from both sides. Control, and now it's there. And then I'll end up just moving it in a little bit. Okay, so same thing here. We'll grab this and we will rotate around axis. Again, let's try it again. Select that, rotate around axis. I'm not having the best luck today with that. Click the red x-axis, type 90. Okay, now the y-axis is facing out just like it is on the other side. And what we'll do is now push this in so it's more or less centered right here on the edge of that. So we'll do a measurement. And I'm concerned with the delta Z. So that's about 15 millimeters. We want to push this in. So I'll click this. And I'll just use V for move. So I click that V, and then I do Control W for placement options. 15 millimeter offset in the Z with regard to original position. And now we moved it in some, right? And again, we'll call this shaft. Okay. So now we're going to make some macros out of this. So for our handle here, we'll open up the properties of the layout space. We'll add in all the properties of the macro. I'm primarily concerned with the name, so we'll just call this, we'll just put it in the Siemens folder, low voltage, 3VA. And of course you could fill out all this other stuff, but the main thing is the macro name. The mechanism, I'll give this a new path as well. So we'll go into the same area here. It already remembers it. Okay, so now I need to generate these two macros for the handle and the mechanism. So I highlight those two layout spaces, go to master data and generate automatically. Okay, the last thing I need to do is go into the parts management and make a change here. Okay, so what I'm going to do is copy this 3 times. So we'll copy and paste this, paste, paste, and we'll just rename this. So we're going to just name this mechanism. I'm not worried about all the other stuff right now. Handle. Number 3 we'll rename to underscore shaft. Okay, and then for each of those we'll apply our new macro. So for handle, We're going to give this a new graphical macro. We put this in 3VA. This one is handle. Okay, so I actually crashed Eplan there. Now, sometimes that can happen. So let's try that again. Try to apply our graphical macro. .3VA. This one is the handle. Okay, that one worked. I didn't crash it this time. Let's do the mechanism. .3VA mechanism with today's date. And then the shaft, this is the interesting one. This one, we have to change this to outline extrusion here with the file type. It should be here in the 3VA, and it's that one with today's date. Apply. The last thing we need to do with this shaft is change the product grouping, because the product grouping does actually affect the way a certain device is placed and how it behaves in different ways. So for this to behave like a variable linked item, the product grouping needs to reflect that. The best category, in my opinion, for this is just to make it a user-defined rail here under mechanics. Okay, and now back here to the original part. We're going to make this an assembly. So we'll just change the record type to assembly. Hit apply, and that allows us to add multiple items to an assembly, multiple parts. That's basically what an assembly is, right? So we'll just add the handle. We'll change the second one to the mechanism, and the third one will be the shaft. It's under mechanics now, user-defined rail, and then there's the shaft. Okay, excellent. Apply. These shouldn't be grayed out. Yeah, we need to close this. I think that's a small bug at the moment. Let's open that again, and it should no longer be grayed out. I'm going to uncheck this. I'm going to set breakup and summarize parts list and parts list to no. The reason is we buy this part number here as, we buy it as one part number, and it's an entire kit. So on the bill of materials, we want it to show up as such. But we want it to be placed in a distributed manner in the 3D layout. So we'll check that right there, distributed placement of assembly. Okay, let's go back into our layout space. We'll start on the mounting panel front, activate directly. And we'll get rid of this, just delete all that. All right. Let's make sure we update the part. So here, we're going to click Master Data Update, since we made some changes to that part, right? Open up the 3D Mounting Layout Navigator. Now you'll see these icons look different. That little icon there reflects that it's a distributed assembly. So here we want to place the mechanism, switch the view to the front, right there. Kind of look at it from the side, make sure everything looks good. Perhaps an isometric view, that looks good to me. Now we're going to switch over to the door. This is the interesting part. Door outside, activate directly, and then the mounting panel we will say show only mounting. Oops, I meant to say show selection, but we'll just do that here. Again, activate the door outside, mounting panel show selection, because we want to see that in the background there. Now we're going to place the handle in the door. Yep, we're going to have to make one more change. Let's go back into our macro project. Sorry about this. We need to apply the handle right here in the middle. So we're going to insert the handle directly in the middle. Okay? and we're going to regenerate this. Okay, now we're going to highlight this project again and update the parts. Okay, let's grab our handle, place it. Now you can see it's placing it from the middle. Highlight our mounting point, whichever one's actually in the middle there. I think it should be that one. Yes. So we were using this shaft as a reference point, but we want to mount it to the door outside. So we'll double click that, and that aligns it up kind of nicely for us. And then now we can grab our shaft and then drag it out like so. Okay. Let's turn off the mounting aids, and now we can get a decent look at this from the other side. And it looks pretty good. You can see that little, we probably needed it to be rotated a little bit. This part that's on the bottom should actually be on the right. So that would need to be rotated 90 degrees. We can delete that and fix that here on the extrusion file. We just take this, edit, rotate, rotate by 90. And then we'll update the parts in the project again. Yep, pick that mounting point there on the mechanism, drag it out to the shaft, and then there you have it. We have our nice disconnect with the shaft, and it looks pretty good to me. So yeah, tell me what you think in the comments. If this works for you, please let me know. Thanks.